Have you ever noticed that the horses who change our lives the most are rarely the easy ones? Most of us begin with a goal. I want to learn how to ride horses. I want to go to horse shows. I want to ride better. I want to train my horse to do FEI dressage. Or I want to train my horse to go advanced cross country. Maybe it's something even simpler. Like, I want a horse that trusts me, or I want a horse that doesn't spook all the time. But somewhere along the way, you realize something. Your horse isn't just learning from you. Your horse isn't just learning from you. You're becoming something different because of them. Your horse is not the product you are trying to build. The relationship is, and the relationships are always built. And relationships are always built through process, not through outcomes. Welcome, friends and fellow horse fiends. I'm Anna Fox of Equus Enlightened, and this is the Thinking Horseman Rider, the podcast dedicated to training you to become the best possible partner for your horse. Here, we explore the science and soul of horsemanship. We dive into equine behavior, the psychology of partnership, and compassionate training methods that help you become a thinking rider who creates a thinking horse. Because when you understand how your horse's mind works and show up with empathy and presence, everything gets easier and a whole lot more fun. My goal is to keep riding easy and fun for everyone, while helping you deepen your connection, find more flow, and maybe even create your own unicorn along the way. Whether you're working on dressage movements or just trying to understand why your horse did that thing they did, we'll explore the research, the real talk, and the small shifts that make a big difference in and out of the saddle. So grab your boots, take a deep breath. What are you waiting for? Come ride with me. Our culture loves outcomes. What are you going to do today? What goal do you have for next year, 5 years, 10 years? We want to know, how was your horse today? Did you win a ribbon? What was your score? No one ever applauds the small things. The uneventful Tuesday ride, reading another book about horses or horsemanship, practicing your breathing, getting off your horse after an amazing 10 minutes. Or maybe even it's just noticing something that you missed yesterday. But those are the moments that actually create the most success. Goals, outcomes provide us with direction, but it's the process that provides us with the information we need to make the transformation. I like to think about it this way. The destination tells you where you're going. The process determines whether you'll ever get there. We hear all the time that horses are our mirrors. And I don't know how great I feel about that, but I do believe that the horse will reveal to you who you already are. They show us our impatiences, our perfectionism, our fears, our overthinking, our inconsistencies, our poor emotional regulation, our ego. You know your horse is going to keep you humble, and they know whether or not you're compassionate. The horse is not creating those things. They're just exposing them. I realize that that might be an uncomfortable thought, but it's also one of the greatest gifts that horses can give us. You don't become patient because you own a horse. You become patient because they give you every day to practice patience. I know there's a lot of people out there who are wondering, how do I become the person that my horse needs? And some people are thinking, how do I make my horse be the horse that I want? Which is usually the wrong question. But a lot of people are out there asking, how do I get my horse to do this? Instead, try asking yourself, who do I need to become to get my horse to do this? A spooky horse might require a calm human. A lazy horse might require a clearer human. A reactive horse might need consistency. Each horse asks something different of us if you see them as individuals. And I think that's the beautiful part. They are all making us better humans all of the time. I always tell my students that you are going to get the horse that you need when you need it. May not be the horse that you want, but it's going to be the horse that you need. And you can either choose to accept that challenge when it comes or let it go. It's entirely up to you. I do think there are a lot of parallels in growing as human beings and growing as horsemen. Goals are great. Goals let us set our mind's eye on the horizon or beyond the horizon. They allow us to dream about what we want to do in the future. But they don't give us daily action plans. And your behavior and daily action is what is actually going to get you to the goal. That is the process. You hear a lot of people talk about, see yourself as that Grand Prix rider. See yourself competing in the Olympics. See yourself going on a trail ride without your horse spooking. Those are all great. I think visualization is very helpful, but execution is everything. Think about it like this. You can't learn to drive with observing the traffic ahead of you, checking your mirrors for the traffic behind you and beside you. You likely put an address into your GPS, and that's where you're headed. That is your goal. But if you don't use the gas, the brake, maybe you're even old school like me and still use the clutch, check your mirrors, use your turn signals, all those things, you're not going to make it. You can stare at the GPS all you want, but it's not going to take you there. It's the execution of the things that gets you there. And execution is more than just doing. It's observing, reflect, thinking, hypothesizing. It's all of those things plus paying attention to your horse, doing your daily task, whether that's groundwork or hill work or watching a video, going for a hack, practicing a dressage test. Whatever it is, it's the daily practice that gets you there. And the daily practice doesn't always have to be on your horse. You can learn just as much off your horse, and you can train your own body just as much off your horse as you do on. That just takes a little bit of visualization and creativity. But those processes will actually change how you look at things in your everyday surroundings. In fact, after a clinic that I just did, I had someone tell me, I started noticing this about people. I started noticing this about myself because of things that we talked about during the clinic. If horses are a part of your life, then the things that you observe around horses, you should also be observing in your regular everyday life. Some of the best horsemanship happens when you are nowhere near your horse. Why? Well, part of it is because as you practice these skills more and more, you gain some speed in processing the information. If I practice breathing when I'm not on my horse, then I notice quicker when I am on my horse and I start holding my breath. If I practice observing when certain muscles are getting tight or when that right hip is locked up when I'm just sitting in my office chair recording a podcast, I will notice it quicker when I'm in the saddle. And that clarity creates speed. I did a podcast episode back in the beginning and working with horses and speed versus latency. Speed is a powerful training tool, much more powerful than there being a long time between practicing something. For instance, if you only ride once a day, if you only have a lesson once a week or twice a week, and you're only practicing those skills during those times, you have long latent periods. But if I give you a skill to practice that you can then go practice on people at the grocery store, which is kind of fun, your speed in noticing is going to increase, your clarity on that process is going to increase, and that is going to translate to your horse. People often think that progress comes from doing more. Actually, it usually comes from deciding less. For instance, I know when I'm starting to tense up my body because I'm a little nervous about talking to someone in public. I might feel that same tension if I feel that my horse is tight. I noticed it quicker. Now I can practice my breathing. Or I can get off my horse and I can do something else before I want to get back on again. Clarity in your process creates speed, which gets you to your goal faster. Deciding less is so important because decision fatigue is really real. When I talk about goal setting with people, I talk about giving you a daily plan for however many days you're going to work with your horse, and then also a daily plan of things that you can work on in your own brain or in your own body so that you don't have to decide what you need to work on. It's already there. And that way you have a process and you know what you need to work on today. You're not making yourself more tired and wasting more energy by thinking, oh, what should I work on today? Now, there are times when we have a plan and we have to change it because something happens with our horse or whatever. But if you've got a written plan for the week or the month, it's really easy to pick another day out and plug it in and move this Tuesday's plan to next Thursday or vice versa. But if you don't have any plans, it's harder to do. If you're someone who tends to wait until the day to decide what they're going to work on, we're going to change you into somebody who knows what they're going to work on. That is going to give you some confidence. That's going to give you some clarity. That's going to give you some speed in your training process. It might be something really small, like my only objective today is noticing every time my horse loses their balance, or every time I feel imbalance in the saddle. It only has to be one thing because once you do that one thing enough, that one thing becomes a habit and then you don't have to think about it anymore. And then you can add another thing. And as you start to do that, as you start to build on these habits, one on top of the other, suddenly you're doing a whole lot of things, but you're not having to think about them anymore. So start with one objective, one observation, one improvement. At the end of your session, whether it's a session with your horse or a session just with yourself, and say, how did that feel? What do I think I learned? What might I want to work on now? Or what did I notice about my horse that I could work on in the future? And then you're going to repeat your process tomorrow. This is why I think good coaching matters and not just good riding instruction. In my mind, coaches do something different. They provide clarity, they give you structure. This isn't because they know everything. It's because they're reducing your latent period between lessons, between your regular riding instruction. I see lots of confused riders, and they don't need more exercises. They really don't even need more lessons. What they need is fewer decisions and better powers of observation. One of my favorite things is to fall in love with repetition. When I start teaching people about repetition, I know they are so bored and they're like, please let us do something else. That's just our human condition. But repetition is how you master things. This doesn't mean drilling your horse, doing 45 minutes worth of canter half passes until they get it right, because inevitably you are the one that's not getting it right. So fall in love with the little bits of repetition, the really small things that seem innocuous. Dressage, and probably in other disciplines too. There's always talk about how you can never do too many transitions. You should do 1,000 transitions every time you get on your horse. Nobody ever does that. Then we wonder why we don't get where we want to go. Nobody celebrates repetition, yet repetition creates excellence. Ask an Olympic athlete how many times they've done the little tiny small things every bloody day. And it's not repeating movements because we have to give our bodies a break. It's repeating their principles. Awareness, it's curiosity, it's timing, being kind to yourself. For our horses, consistency and clarity. It doesn't matter whether you're working on grooming your horse, mounting your horse, trailer loading, lunging, if you're hand grazing, or if you're doing some groundwork. All of the principles should remain the same. You're only changing activities. Your powers of observation should remain really astute. Remember, your horse is always learning something. You're always learning something. Every interaction teaches. It can teach the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. The horse might want to know, is my human predictable? The rider might be asking themselves, can I stay regulated? Every interaction with your horse changes both of your brains. That's why the relationship matters more than the techniques. And this whole process changes you. It gives you the opportunity to grow into the horseman that you want to be, thereby creating the horse that everyone wants to love. Most riders think that consistency means I rode 6 days this week. No. And this is seed 3 of my online course. Consistency means that I practice the same principles 6 days this week. And those are very different things. Your horse is not a product that you're trying to build. Your horse is a living, breathing being who you're trying to make a mutually beneficial partnership with. All mutually beneficial partnerships are built through process, not through outcome. So your 10-minute experiment this week doesn't even really involve your horse. Seriously, I want you to take 10 minutes and write down the days that you're planning to ride and write down, what do I need to practice to get where I want to go? One thing. You got to pick one thing. What do I need my horse to practice to get where I want to go? So you might now have to go back to question 1 and change it because you may have put something in there that you think you need to teach your horse. But what I want you to put on question 1 is, what do I need to practice? It might be breathing. It might be coordinating your leg aids. It might be getting your right hip out of the way or getting more mobility in your thoracic spine. I don't know. Pick something, one thing. And question 3 is, if we just repeated those 2 practices for the next 3 weeks, what would happen? Then, if you're really ambitious, try them for 3 weeks. See if you build a habit, see if anything changes. Who would you become if you did that? Notice I didn't ask, what would you accomplish? I asked, who would you become as a pair? Maybe you never end up winning the blue ribbon. Maybe you never ride Grand Prix. Maybe you never own the perfect horse. But if the process teaches you how to become more patient, more observant, more compassionate, clearer, steadier, more curious, then you've already succeeded, because long after the ribbons are packed away, those qualities will remain, and you'll transfer them to your fellow humans too. And in building those relationships, you quietly become someone your horse and the people around you can trust, someone they want to be around. I like to say, train yourself and the horse will follow. If you train only the horse, eventually you'll lose the relationship, because nobody wants to be trained by some person all the time. We call that abusive relationships in humans. Okay, don't let me go down that rabbit hole. Try those 3 questions for a couple of weeks. Make your life simple. If you're listening to this when it's released in July, it's hot here in the East Coast. Take things easy for a little bit, and you might be surprised how quickly you make progress. See you next time. All right, horse fiends, thanks for hanging out with us today. If this episode got your gears turning, don't forget to check out Reconnect, Rebuild, and Ride with Heart. The links are in the show notes. It's the program that'll take everything we talked about here and actually help you apply it in real life with your horse. And hey, before you ride off, make sure you like, subscribe, and leave a quick rating or review of the show. It helps more riders like you find us and keep these conversations going. All the links you need are waiting in the show notes. Happy riding!